Imagine standing at 13,000 feet above sea level. The air's so thin, every breath feels like half. The temperature hovers at freezing despite the blazing sun overhead. Hands numb, vision blurred from altitude sickness. And stretched out below, carved into the mountainside with laser precision, agricultural terraces, 15,000 of them, descending in perfect geometric spirals. Each terrace exactly 1.8 meters wide. Each wall constructed without mortar. Stones cut so precisely, a razor blade cannot fit between them. This isn't modern engineering. This is 800 years old. Now look closer at those stones. See the interlocking pattern? 12 angles on a single block. Not 6, not 8, 12 perfectly carved facets, each one fitting against its neighbor like a three-dimensional puzzle. Geologists say these are andesite and diorite, stones ranking 6.5 on the Mohs hardness scale. To shape them requires tools harder than the stone itself. Bronze, the hardest metal the Inca supposedly possessed, ranks 3.5. So how are these stones carved? With what? The official answer: patience and stone hammers. The problem with that answer: it doesn't explain why these walls have survived 7 major earthquakes, while Spanish colonial buildings built on top of them crumbled to dust. Welcome to Peru. Not the Peru of tourist brochures and Machu Picchu selfies. The other Peru. The one beneath the surface, carved into mountains, buried under jungles, and scattered across desert plains so vast and so empty that their secrets remained hidden until humans learned to fly. This is a land where civilizations rose and fell for 5,000 years. Longer than the pyramids, longer than Mesopotamia, longer than anything in the history books. But here's what doesn't make sense. The deeper the excavation, the more advanced the technology. The older the site, the more precise the engineering. It's backwards. Evolution doesn't work in reverse. Yet here, in Peru, that's exactly what the evidence shows. And there's another problem. In 1532, Spanish conquistadors arrived and systematically destroyed every record, every temple, every codex they could find. What survived was scattered, some in Lima, some in Cuzco, some in private collections from Madrid to New York. But the complete picture? No one has it. Or if they do, they're not talking. Peru isn't just a country. It's a crime scene where the evidence was deliberately erased. And today, 6 pieces of that evidence will be examined. 6 locations that should not exist. 6 impossibilities scattered across one narrow strip of land between the Andes and the Pacific. The journey begins in the south, high in the Andes, where the air is too thin for most humans to function. Here, at 3,800 meters above sea level, lies Cusco, once the capital of an empire that controlled 5,000 kilometers of coastline without inventing the wheel. At the northern edge of the city stands Sacsayhuaman, a fortress, a temple, or something else entirely. No one knows for certain. What's known is this: it's built from stones weighing up to 200 tons. Not 200 kilograms, 200 tons. One stone, the size of a 3-story building, transported from a quarry 20 kilometers away, uphill, across a river, and fitted into a wall with such precision that 5 centuries of earthquakes haven't shifted it a millimeter. The walls form 3 levels, zigzagging across the hillside in a pattern that resembles teeth or lightning. Each stone a different shape, each one interlocking with its neighbors in 3 dimensions. Some blocks have as many as 12 angles. The Spanish chronicler Pedro Cieza de Leon visited in 1540 and wrote, "I cannot understand what instruments or tools were used to cut them." One can also wonder how such enormous stones were brought here, because they were not all from nearby. Some came from great distances. 480 years later, engineers still can't answer that question. The official story: the Inca built Sacsayhuaman between 1438 and 1471 under the rule of Pachacuti. They used stone hammers, bronze chisels, and tens of thousands of workers. But when archaeologists excavated the lower levels, they found something that didn't fit. The stones at the foundation, the largest ones, showed a completely different construction style. Smoother, more precise, no tool marks. The Inca themselves told the Spanish they didn't build the lower levels. They said they found them. They said the walls were built by the gods, by beings who came before, in a time so distant even the Inca had no memory of it. In 1950, a Peruvian archaeologist named Daniel Rizzo discovered something even stranger. Scattered around Sacsayhuaman were stones carved into shapes. Animals, faces, thrones. Some appeared to depict humans wearing helmets. Others showed creatures that don't exist in the Andean animal kingdom. One stone, dubbed the Throne of the Inca, has a polished seat cut into solid rock. But the seat faces away from the city, toward the mountains, as if waiting for someone or something to return. On May 21st, 1950, a massive earthquake struck Cusco. Measuring 6.0 on the Richter scale, it destroyed over 3,000 buildings. Churches collapsed. Government offices reduced to rubble. The cathedral's bell tower cracked in half. But Sacsayhuaman? Not a single stone moved. Colonial structures built on Inca foundations survived. Everything else fell. Modern seismologists analyzed the wall design and discovered something remarkable. The zigzag pattern isn't decorative. It's seismic engineering. The interlocking stones create a flexible structure that shifts with ground motion, dissipating energy instead of resisting it. This is a principle that modern earthquake-resistant design only adopted in the 20th century. Yet here it is, executed in 200-ton stones, allegedly by a civilization using stone hammers. They were discovered by Axai. What were they protecting? Why build a fortress facing away from the city, toward the mountains where no enemy could approach? And if the Inca didn't build the foundation, who did? Questions science doesn't rush to answer. But a structure that survives earthquakes while everything around it crumbles isn't just architecture. It's a message carved in stone. We knew something you've forgotten. Now, 75 kilometers northwest, into the Sacred Valley, where the Urubamba River cuts through the Andes like a scar. Here, clinging to a vertical cliff face 2,800 meters above sea level, hangs Ollantaytambo, a fortress, a temple, and according to Inca legend, the last stronghold of resistance against the Spanish invasion. But Ollantaytambo is older than that story. Much older. At the top of the terraces sits the Temple of the Sun, constructed from 6 massive red granite monoliths, each weighing over 50 tons, each standing upright, perfectly aligned, fitted together with millimeter precision. Red granite. That's the problem. There's no red granite anywhere near Ollantaytambo. The nearest source is across the valley, across the river, 8 kilometers away. Not as the crow flies, but up a mountain, down a canyon, across a river that runs fast and deep even in the dry season. Engineers calculated the logistics. To move a 50-ton block of granite across that terrain would require modern cranes, steel cables, and paved roads. The Inca had none of these. They had ropes made of grass. They had wooden rollers. And according to the official story, they had patience. But there's another detail. Scattered on a mountain slope across the river from Ollantaytambo, precisely at the quarry site, lie dozens of abandoned stones, some partially carved, some shaped and ready, some the exact same size and shape as the monoliths at the temple. And they've been sitting there for 500 years. Why abandon stones that were nearly finished? Why leave them so close to completion? The Spanish chroniclers reported that when they arrived, the temple was unfinished, the stones abandoned. But the lower levels, the foundation, those were ancient even then. The Inca themselves said they were restoring something older, something they found. At the base of the temple complex lies something even stranger, a series of trapezoidal niches carved directly into the living bedrock. Not built, carved. The cliff face shaped as if the mountain itself was softened, molded, then rehardened. Geologists see clear tool marks on the granite blocks. But on these bedrock niches, nothing. No chisel marks, no percussion patterns. Just smooth, curved surfaces flowing into sharp, precise edges. One researcher brought a sample to a materials lab. The analysis showed vitrification, microscopic melting at the surface level. The kind of surface change that occurs under extreme heat. but granite melts at 1,215 degrees Celsius. No Bronze Age fire reaches that temperature. Not even close. Local legend offers a different explanation. The Inca oral tradition speaks of a plant, jaco, that could soften stone. The Spanish chronicler Garcilaso de la Vega recorded the story in 1609. The natives say their ancestors possessed a plant that could turn stone into clay. He dismissed it as superstition. But in the 1980s, researchers found that certain Amazonian plants contain oxalic acid concentrations high enough to etch limestone. Not soften it, etch it. But the legend doesn't say etch. It says soften. Mold, shaped like clay. What if the legend is a metaphor? What if the tool marks we don't see are the ones we shouldn't be looking for? What if the method wasn't mechanical but chemical, or something else entirely? The question hangs in the air at Ollantay Tambo, unanswered, and the stones across the river remain where they were left 5 centuries ago, as if the builders walked away mid-project and never returned. From the mountains to the coast, from stone to sand. The Nazca Desert stretches across 450 square kilometers of the driest place on Earth. It hasn't rained here in measurable amounts for over 1,000 years. The soil is rust-red, baked hard as concrete, covered in a thin layer of black oxidized pebbles. During the day, surface temperatures exceed 45 degrees Celsius. At night, they plummet below freezing. Nothing grows. Nothing lives. It's a blank canvas. And someone drew on it. The Nazca lines. Over 800 straight lines. 300 geometric shapes. 70 animal figures. Hummingbirds, spiders, monkeys, orcas, condors. The hummingbird measures 96 meters from beak to tail. The monkey stretches 110 meters. The spider, 47 meters. The condor, 136 meters. These aren't paintings. They're geoglyphs, shallow trenches carved 10 to 15 centimeters into the desert floor by removing the dark surface pebbles to reveal the lighter sand beneath. And they're invisible from ground level. Completely invisible. To see them, altitude is required. Lots of it. Then in 1927, when Peruvian archaeologist Toribio Mejia Zesp hiked into the foothills and noticed lines on the desert below. But it wasn't until commercial airlines began flying over the region in the 1930s that their true scale became apparent. German mathematician Maria Reich spent 40 years studying them. She measured, mapped, cataloged. Her conclusion: the lines are an astronomical calendar. The spider represents the constellation Orion. The monkey, Ursa Major. The straight lines point to solstices, equinoxes, star risings. It made sense until other researchers checked her calculations and found most of the alignments were off. A few matched. Most didn't. So, if not a calendar, what? British explorer Toni Morrison proposed they were pathways for religious processions, sacred routes walked during rituals. Possible. Except many lines run perfectly straight for kilometers, directly over hills and gullies without deviation, as if terrain didn't matter. Walking them would be pointless. Some lines are less than 30 centimeters wide. Processions would erase them within months. Yet they've lasted over 1,500 years. Then there are the figures that don't make sense geographically. The orca, the monkey, both animals from ecosystems hundreds of kilometers away. The orca from the cold Pacific coast, the monkey from the Amazon jungle on the opposite side of the Andes. The Nazca people never traveled that far. Their civilization was localized, their trade network limited. Yet they drew creatures they shouldn't have known existed. How? In 1968, Swiss author Erich von Däniken proposed a theory that made him famous and reviled in equal measure. The Nazca lines are runways. Landing strips for ancient aircraft. Archaeologists tore the idea apart. The lines aren't compacted. They wouldn't support the weight of any vehicle. The soil is too soft. The theory is nonsense. Except von Däniken never said runways for conventional craft. He said markers. Signals. Messages visible only from the sky. For whom? He didn't say gods. He said travelers. In 2014, drones equipped with LiDAR scanning revealed something new. Beneath and around the known lines are hundreds more, smaller, older, invisible even from aircraft. Some are concentric spirals. Others are geometric grids with no discernible pattern. And at the center of several of the largest figures, buried under centuries of sand, archaeologists found platforms, raised stone structures, deliberately constructed, as if the figures weren't just art, but locations. Coordinates. Who draws a 100-meter hummingbird that can only be seen from 300 meters in the air? Why etch lines perfectly straight for 20 kilometers across hills that disrupt them visually but not geometrically? Why create something meant to last millennia in one of the harshest environments on the planet? The Nazca people left no written language, no explanation, just the lines and the silence of the desert. From sand to stone to water, beneath the desert, something even stranger. 30 kilometers from the Nazca lines, near the small town of Nazca, lies an underground network that shouldn't exist. Cantiloc aqueducts, or puquios in the local Quechua language. 46 subterranean channels, each one spiraling downward in a corkscrew pattern, tapping into underground aquifers and bringing water to the surface in a region that receives less than 4 millimeters of rain per year. The spirals, called ojos, eyes, are open to the air, forming funnel-shaped openings that descend 15 meters into the earth. The design is genius. Wind entering the spiral creates a pressure differential that pulls water upward and maintains airflow through the tunnels, preventing stagnation and algae growth. It's a self-sustaining, zero-energy water system, and it's been working continuously for over 1,500 years. Some archaeologists argue it's 2,000 years old, possibly older. Modern hydrologists studied the system in 2016. Their conclusion: we don't know how they calculated the gradients. The tunnels slope at an angle precise enough to maintain water flow without erosion or sediment buildup. Too steep, and the channels would collapse. Too shallow, and the water would stagnate. The Nazca engineers got it perfect. Without laser levels, without computer modeling, without even a written numbering system that archaeologists can confirm. And here's the strangest part. The puquios don't follow the most direct route to the surface. They spiral. They loop. They take the long way. Why? Hydrologists initially assumed it was inefficiency, ancient trial and error. But further analysis revealed the loops aren't random. They follow the underground aquifer's natural flow, matching the subterranean water table's contours with centimeter-level precision, meaning the builders knew the exact shape and depth of water sources they couldn't see. How? Local legend says the puquios were built by Viracocha, the creator god who taught the ancestors agriculture, astronomy, and engineering before disappearing across the Pacific, promising to return. The Spanish recorded this legend in the 16th century and dismissed it. But the puquios remain, 46 of them, still functional, still providing 80% of the region's water supply. While modern wells drilled in the 1970s have run dry, the ancient spirals still flow. Now, into the jungle. The Amazon basin, where 60% of Peru disappears under green. Here, the evidence doesn't sit on the surface. It hides. In 2009, British researcher Robert Dover used satellite imagery to map geometric structures concealed beneath the forest canopy in the acre region of western Amazonia, just across the border from Peru. Over 450 geoglyphs, massive earthworks, ditches, and raised platforms arranged in perfect circles, squares, and hexagons. Each structure spans 100 to 300 meters in diameter. They were invisible until deforestation exposed them, and they're over 2,000 years old. By 2018, further LiDAR surveys revealed the geoglyphs extend deep into Peru. Hundreds of them, thousands possibly, all hidden under trees. But the Amazon rainforest was supposed to be untouched wilderness, a green desert where civilizations couldn't thrive due to poor soil and dense vegetation. That was the scientific consensus until the geoglyphs appeared. Now the consensus is collapsing. The ditches aren't defensive. They're too shallow, too geometric. Some researchers suggest astronomical observatories. Others propose ceremonial centers. Still others point out the structures align with one another across distances exceeding 200 kilometers. Precise geometric networks connecting sites that shouldn't have been visible to each other through the jungle canopy. Unless the canopy wasn't there, or unless they had another way to see. One site, near the Peruvian town of Requena, shows something that shouldn't be possible. Excavations in 2017 revealed a layer of dark, carbon-rich soil beneath the geoglyphs, terra preta, black earth. This soil type is man-made, engineered using charcoal, bone, and organic matter to create a self-sustaining agricultural system that remains fertile for centuries. It's one of the most advanced soil technologies ever developed. The Amazon basin contains over 18,000 square kilometers of it. But the accepted narrative says Amazonian societies were small, scattered, semi-nomadic. They didn't have the population or organization to engineer soil on that scale. Yet the evidence is there, literally beneath the surface. In 2020, archaeologists working near the Ucayali River uncovered pottery decorated with geometric patterns identical to those found in textiles from the Nazca culture, 700 kilometers away on the opposite side of the Andes. The same symbols, the same proportions, dating to the same period. How did design motifs cross one of the most impassable mountain ranges on the planet? The official answer, probably trade. But there's no evidence of Nazca materials in the Amazon, and no evidence of Amazonian materials in Nazca. Just the symbols, the shared language of geometry. And then there's the story the locals tell. Deep in the Madre de Dios region, guides speak of piedras pintadas, painted stones covered in symbols no one can read. They speak of ciudades perdidas, lost cities swallowed by the jungle. And they speak of the Paititi, the legendary refuge where the last Inca fled with the empire's gold after the Spanish conquest. Dozens of expeditions have searched for it. None succeeded, but in 2019, thermal imaging from satellites detected geometric anomalies beneath the canopy near the Pacharo River, rectangular patterns, raised platforms, and what appears to be a road network. Archaeologists haven't excavated yet. The site is too remote, too dangerous, or maybe too sensitive. Finally, the most disturbing stop. Back to the coast, to a place that predates the Nazca, predates the Inca, predates everything. Carroll, a city 200 kilometers north of Lima, built 5,000 years ago. Not 500, not 1,000, 5,000. That makes it as old as the Egyptian pyramids, older than Stonehenge, older than Chinese civilization. And it was forgotten, buried under sand until 1994, when Peruvian archaeologist Ruth Shady began excavations. The city covers 66 hectares, 6 pyramidal structures, the largest standing 18 meters tall, sunken plazas, residential complexes, an amphitheater that could hold hundreds, radiocarbon dating of organic materials, reed fibers used in construction, gave dates between 2600 and 2000 BCE. But here's what's strange. No weapons, no fortifications, no evidence of warfare. Carroll appears to have been a peaceful society, something almost unheard of in ancient civilizations. And it was sophisticated. The plaza layouts align with astronomical events. The architecture incorporates seismic-resistant design, foundations filled with stone-filled reed bags that shift during earthquakes, exactly like the stones at Sacsayhuaman. Then there's the quipu, knotted strings used by the Inca to record information, numbers, dates, possibly even language. The oldest known quipu dated to around 650 CE. Until Carroll. Excavations uncovered quipus at Carroll dating to 2500 BCE, 3,000 years earlier than any previously known example. That pushes the origin of this recording system back into the pre-ceramic period, a time when the official narrative says Andean societies were still primitive. Except they weren't. They were building cities, tracking astronomy, and recording data. And they were listening. In 2002, researchers found 32 flutes carved from pelican and condor bones, decorated with figures of monkeys and birds, creatures from the Amazon. The flutes were tested. They're still playable. The tones match a pentatonic scale, the same 5-note system used in traditional Andean music today. 5,000 years of musical continuity. But who were they playing for? One more thing. Carroll shows no evidence of ceramic pottery. None. Every other advanced ancient civilization, Egypt, Mesopotamia, Indus Valley, developed pottery early. It's one of the markers of societal complexity. But Carroll built pyramids, recorded information, and engineered earthquake-resistant architecture without it. They skipped a step, or they didn't need it. And that raises the question, what else did they skip? What other technologies did they develop that left no trace? In 2016, ground-penetrating radar surveys around Carroll detected subsurface anomalies, regular geometric patterns buried beneath the sand. Platforms, tunnels, possibly entire structures still unexcavated. The Peruvian government restricted further exploration, citing preservation concerns. Or maybe concerns of another kind. Because if Carroll is 5,000 years old, and it's this advanced, what lies beneath it? What came before? 6 locations. 6 impossibilities. What connects them? Sacsayhuaman, a fortress built with 200-ton stones fitted with 12-angle precision, surviving earthquakes that destroy everything else, allegedly constructed by a civilization using stone hammers. Ollantaytambo, granite monoliths transported across rivers and mountains, partially melted surfaces with no tool marks, and stones abandoned mid-construction 500 years ago. Nazca lines, geoglyphs visible only from the sky, depicting animals from distant ecosystems, drawn by a people with no written language and no need to fly. Canalock aqueducts, self-sustaining water systems spiraling underground with hydrological precision that modern engineers can't replicate, still functioning after 2,000 years. Amazonian geoglyphs, geometric earthworks hidden beneath jungle, aligned across hundreds of kilometers, built by societies that weren't supposed to exist. Carroll, a 5,000-year-old city without weapons, without pottery, but with pyramids, quipus, and earthquake-resistant engineering. All of them in Peru. All of them impossible according to the timeline. All of them showing one pattern. The older the site, the more advanced the technology. Reverse evolution. And all of them incomplete. As if construction stopped suddenly. As if the builders left. What if Peru isn't just a country? What if it's a testing ground? A laboratory where something or someone experimented with engineering, agriculture, astronomy, and infrastructure, then walked away? Why did the Spanish destroy every record they could find? Why are large sections of the Peruvian Amazon still off-limits to archaeological teams? Why was Carroll excavation delayed for decades despite clear evidence of its importance? Maybe the answers aren't in the past. Maybe they're in the future, waiting for the day when access is granted, when the full excavations are allowed, when ground-penetrating radar is permitted to scan what lies beneath every restricted site. Or maybe the answers have already been found, and that's exactly why they're being hidden. 6 points on a map. 6 pieces of a puzzle scattered across mountains, deserts, and jungles. They shouldn't be in one place, but they are, and they're waiting.